Thank you very much, Marina, and thank you again to Agnes for her interesting talk. Good morning, everybody. I'll speak into the microphone, that'll be better. I'll try not to crouch too much. Thank you for coming, and as there's no choice of sessions today, thank you for staying as well. I'm going to tell you about this oil project that we did in collaboration with two other institutions in Europe. From the University of Wasser, we had my colleague Nicole Keng, some of you may know her, and two colleagues in Vivers in Belgium. That was Anne and Lean, so thanks to them, they're here in spirit even though they can't be here with us today. So it's an oil project we're talking about. I was wondering if you've seen any of these products or services in the local neighbourhood or in your markets nearby. These were some of the products and services that are pitched by our students in this project. So you may not have seen them before, but maybe you will in the future. So we're going to tell you a bit more about those a bit later during this talk. So just an outline of what I'm going to tell you about today. We'll obviously talk about the rationale why we did it. I'm particularly going to focus on the collaboration, the interaction between the students and the feedback that we gave and from the students themselves, and also possibly a little bit of time for the future directions of this type of project. So why oil? Many of you will know about the internationalization drives that are happening in higher education at the moment. We've got this quote from the HEA, the Higher Education Authority, and this kind of thing is echoed by the particular institutions. Basically, we're aiming to prepare global graduates to go out into the wide world, not just be restricted to one particular national context. So that's a real drive in higher education at the moment. The other main foundation stone, if you like, of this project was the need and the desire to promote intercultural competence. Deirdre has written a lot on this, and she defines it as so. So have a quick look at that. Two colleagues here, Daniel and Brindar, they work at Coventry University. They've done a lot of work on oil projects, and also that was an influence in me starting this project. They talk about the need for the virtual mobility, because even though student mobility is a key drive in HEA, not all students can go abroad physically, so the virtual mobility, the oil programs are very important in terms of promoting and facilitating intercultural competence development. Of course, there are challenges in this kind of project and all this kind of virtual learning. O'Dowd talks a lot about telecollaboration. You may have read some of his work, and he talks about the barriers to integration and blended learning, but he also helpfully provides a lot of keys as well. So that's an interesting paper to read. Other writers have talked about the discourses and ideologies of internationalization. It's not a simple concept. There's the ideal framework, then there's the instrumentalist approach and the educationalist approach, which essentially is talking about the fact that we're in a business. Education is not just pure education anymore, it's a commercial undertaking in many respects. So there's the market-driven element against the pedagogy. So these areas are not always sitting harmoniously, if you like. They are sometimes in conflict, sometimes divergent. So perhaps that's an area to talk about later on during the symposium. I'd heard about projects that also influenced me, made me want to try one of these virtual online projects, an oil project. Orsini Jones, who you may know as Marina, and her colleagues Zoe, Elwyn, who may be here today, Gwenola, they had an interesting project with Coventry students and Mexican students, and that was very student-driven. So they talked about the sense of ownership, which is a desirable outcome. Other writers have talked about projects. This is an example of Mexico and American students collaborating, and they talk about a unique experience. So if this is something we can provide to our students, then again, that's a beneficial outcome, I would think. So what was the focus of this particular project? Essentially, we're just trying to find out how these online international exchanges can raise intercultural awareness. That's what we're trying to gauge. And my students were international business students, so we wanted to see what kind of communication skills could be developed as well. Side benefits, obviously hoping to foster critical thinking, reflection, again, you know, key attributes in a global graduate, or any kind of graduate to that extent. And, you know, this kind of project hopefully would also enhance the participants' employability profile, so they could put it on their resume, their CV. They could say to future employers, this is what we've done, this was very useful. Give us a job. So, who were the participants? Okay, we've had two versions of this oil project. We've just done the second version, so it's a kind of an evolving project. So I want to try and show how it's changed in the two versions. We have students based at Coventry University from China. We have their Belgian peers who are studying entrepreneurship in Viva's College. We have a group of Malaysian marketing students who are based at Coventry University. And we had a team from Finland who I'm going to they're going to introduce themselves very briefly now. I hope.
Hello, my name is Walter, and this is Lisa, Henry, and Sami, and we are One Cycle. Around 100 million tons of food are wasted annually in the EU.
Okay, so that's just a snippet of the start of their presentation. We're going to show you a couple more clips as we go along. But we can begin to see the different presentation styles that the students employed. Okay, so what was the platform that we used? The first version we used Open Moodle. Some of you will be familiar, most of you will be familiar with Moodle itself, so that was an advantage in the respect that we all knew how to use it. You can upload stuff, there are forums there. It's fairly easy to use. Our Belgian partners thought it was a bit clunky, so the second version we used OneDrive, which was a slightly different platform, but had its advantages as well. So we're changing the different ways we could communicate. Just one aspect we looked at before anyone engaged with each other in the project. We did an intercultural sensitivity scale, which is a way of measuring people's competence, if you like. Most of the participants took part, but essentially, you know, obviously respect was high up. Most of the students had perceived that they had a good deal of respect for each other. When it came to more the subtle meanings expressed in communication and interaction, perhaps it was less certain. The nuances of intercultural communication, they were less sure about that, so maybe that was an area that they could be explored a bit more. So the project structure, let me tell you a little bit about that. Essentially, the integral part of this kind of project, they've got to engage and introduce themselves first of all. That's a prerequisite stage, really. The second stage is the actual main task in this project, which they were pitching a product or service from their own country and culture to a new global market. So the Belgians were pitching something to the Chinese students, for example, the Malaysians to the Finnish, etc. So it was a kind of dual task. Stage 3, the groups would respond to the presentations, and then they would later get feedback from subject experts. And I'll exemplify this as we go along through the talk. The final stage was reflecting on the experience. Okay, so it was the perceptions of the participants that I was particularly interested in, and the tutors as well. So it's a fairly simple structure, which helps, I think, with these oil projects. So let me show you a couple of quick examples. The first time round when we did it on Open Moodle, this was the Malaysian and the Finnish students, just asking about each other's free time activities, finding a little bit more about each other's culture and hobbies, etc. It was more asynchronous, really. They put a question up, they responded when they had some time to do that. So, okay, they're getting to know each other a little bit more. The second version, we use Skype, and obviously that's synchronous interaction. you know, the Belgian comment said it was a little bit stiff at first, but they relaxed a bit more as they went along, and they seemed to say it's something that they would develop and improve on in future types of this communication. I'd like to show you just the interaction between an Indonesian group we had and a Belgian group. They were working together. This was also on Skype, but I've done the transcript, and here's what a Belgian student says. They said, "Can you give us a rare fact about your home country?" So they're asking for something, not just the kind of stereotypical view of Indonesia. They want to find something that perhaps they didn't know. And the Indonesian student says, "Okay, probably our traffic jams, it's really bad, so if you come to our country, you'll be like, what's going on? It's traffic jams everywhere. And we also have lots of islands, maybe thousands." So they want to tell them about the islands of Indonesia. "If you know Bali, have you been to Bali?" "Yeah, numerous times. I'm jealous." So there was, you know, there's a bit of rapport going on. They were communicating. It was getting a bit more interesting and meaningful, I think, and it was more natural, really. So that Skype conversation was supposed to be about 5 minutes, and we filmed and recorded it, but it went on for about half an hour. So the engagement was positive, I would say. Here's the first example I'm going to show you of one of the pitches, and this is 2 Belgian students had been on a trip to China, and they were going to pitch their product or their service to the Chinese students. So we'll let Thomas say a little bit more about it. I hope the volume's okay. Not sure how to get it any higher, really. Okay. Oops, sorry.
A few weeks ago, Renee and I went to China with the school for 10 days, and the first 2 days we stayed at the Hangzhou Normal University. The camps in China are way bigger than in Belgium. Chinese students live in big student apartments, and one thing that was very remarkable was that the students hang their wash outside so that their clothes can dry. This was funny to see, but it's also an inefficient way of working. Therefore, wash bar is the perfect solution. The idea is to establish a wash bar at Hangzhou Normal University, and then students can go to the wash bar and put their dirty clothes in the washing machine.
As Thomas already said, when we went to China, we noticed that the Chinese people still hang their laundry outside to dry. So the wash bar could be like a preferred alternative. We also think that this unique concept will appeal to the Chinese market, as Chinese people easily accept new and innovative ideas. They like cool and trendy things and are one of the first to adapt new trends.
Okay, so it was a kind of laundrette cafe launched, you know, in that particular market. The first question from the Chinese students was about the promotion and the social media and the access, and they responded by saying, you know, are you aware that Facebook, Twitter, etc. are not always available in Chinese mainland? So that was a slight problem and awareness-raising response for the Belgian students. The second one, I'm not going to play this one because it's only audio, but this was the Chinese students' pitch. It was an alternative therapy. Some of you may know this, fire cupping, apparently. When you put these glass things on the body and heat them up, and that's apparently very soothing and therapeutic. But it's got its own probably health and safety risks as well. You can get burnt that way, apparently. But the first comments were, great presentation, we liked it, we thought it was really good, thank you for your appreciation. The second one says it's an exotic product, it's a bit scary, maybe you're going to get burnt. So they've made a suggestion here, you know, perhaps they could demonstrate it, etc. So that was a constructive suggestion, and they thanked them, you know, in a kind of courteous way. And they went on these kind of constructive collaborative exchanges. They make suggestions. They try and discuss how to solve the problem, providing solutions, etc. And the Chinese team respond by saying, we found your advice very thoughtful. You know, they're showing good linguistic awareness, and it's appropriate type of communication. and they're also using their vocabulary, their business and marketing vocabulary, talking about product bundles. So, you know, I think positive engagement there. The third one I want to show you is the Indonesian students had been discussing on Skype, and they made this assumption from their discussion, saying it seems the Belgian students like to study hard and party hard. So they're going to pitch this product, which is a kind of herbal remedy if you're ill, possibly if you have a hangover, that sort of thing. So have a quick look at the two guys. They're on the phone talking about a possible cure for his illness.
Herbal medicine.
Okay, where is it? I need it now. Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling better now. Wow.
Your pain away.
Yes, everyone. As you saw in the video in the beginning, Yapo is an Indonesian herbal tonic made from the finest natural ingredients. Before we go into any details, I would like to explain what our vision and mission is.
So they're showing creativity, it's quite humorous, and then you've got this more formal bit with Ezra presenting it from here. So their slogan was "Drink your pain away." I've already ordered 20 sachets of this product for my colleagues mainly, I hasten to add. Okay, and the response to this was from the Belgian students who would respond to this project. I'll briefly show you a little bit of this because they talked about different elements of the presentation.
Now I am going to tell you some remarks concerning the product that they introduced to us. The original product does not exist in Belgium yet. They asked us a few questions concerning the Belgian nightlife and interests of the students. Their product really responds to our answers. Their product is good for a cold, a hangover, mental exhaustion, and we think this could be very popular with the Belgian students.
Okay, so just to show you the kinds of interaction that were going on, it was the video responses and audio responses. So the feedback itself was from three perspectives. We had a business marketing colleagues in FBL here, we had intercultural people in the Centre for Global Engagement, and we had myself as an English language tutor talking about the presentation, delivery and language. So there's three elements of feedback. I'll show you a couple of examples. For example, the business tutors talk about the product mix and that sort of thing. Very positive points there, but also areas to work on. So you got the business perspective. We got the intercultural awareness. This was a Malaysian student talking about teh tarik, and they're talking about respect. Those are positive elements. Also, things to work on were put forward by each of the tutors. On the language side, you know, obviously we'd comment on the fluency, if you like, of the presentation, or areas to work on, whether it's pronunciation. And, you know, the different styles of presentation was another thing as well. Some of our students, the first version, they tended to use a very traditional PowerPoint style, like I'm doing now. I must show you a little bit. This is my favorite clip of the Chinese students who are pitching their product and service to the Belgian students. And this one, they'd done a bit of, well, they wanted to do a bit of research with some British-based students before they pitched it to the Belgians. And this is two of the students doing that. And please look out for the very impressive and advanced microphone technique that BT uses.
Today we're going to introduce some people about the knowledge in Chinese Kung Fu, so let's go!
Okay, let's go.
Kung Fu movie before?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I see. Bruce Lee is amazing. I seem to make Kung Fu Panda is a coach. Yeah, I love Jackie Chan. Have you guys considered learning Kung Fu yourself?
Yeah, I never thought about this, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, same for me. Cool.
No, but I think it would be a nice chance.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
So, what kind of tea do you usually drink?
Yeah, I drink the green tea. How about you?
Yeah, same. Or black tea with some milk.
Oh, okay. English.
tea, normal tea.
Where do you think invented tea?
I thought it was in Japan.
Yeah, same.
Could be the UK.
That's in China. What if I told you there's a club where you can learn Chinese kung fu and tea? Would you be interested? Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sounds like why not?
Cool. Yeah, why not? Yeah. Oh, hope to see you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, and they go on to talk about this, this new service. Apologies to our Chinese delegates about the English inventing tea. Sorry, we can't claim that. Curry maybe, but not tea. Okay, so here are some comments from the students. Here, the Chinese students, they're commenting on the, they did feel it was, they were benefiting from this cultural awareness. Just give me 1 minute, Marina, if that's okay. Okay. And the Belgian students were also positive, but they were said, surprisingly, it was the first time they'd actually had contact with overseas students. So that was a surprise to me. Okay, it was again. I would say it's improving their employability skills. That's how they perceive it, and the other skills such as group work, etc., would be beneficial. The feedback from the partners was also positive. These are a couple of examples. It's more than just the theoretical side, it's more than just reading. One of the partners also mentioned that it was good for these Finnish students to think in a more global way. Language learning can be effective, that was also positive. And just drawing on their own country, sort of talking about a domestic product, that was seen as to be a positive element. And finally, I think the international spirit, which is kind of why we're here as well in these sort of contexts. So that was a positive outcome. The final things I'd like to say, I think there were positive impacts. Many of these points I've gone through. Things like little skills that I didn't think about, you know, improving their video editing skills. That's what one student commented. So there were lots of benefits, I feel. Just the side effects of oil projects, it can lead into other international activities, such as we had guest lecturers from Belgium coming to speak to our Global Leaders programs. I've presented with my colleagues at international conferences at IATEFL and Barleap. There's a project going to Finland, which is the Global Leaders with one of my oil partners. That's possibly come out of this collaboration. We had a staff Erasmus exchange in Belgium when I went over and taught there. That was a good program. When I was in Belgium, I was walking along a canal and I saw this sign. I thought, I've got to take a photo of that because it seemed quite apt. It said, "Stop bitching, start pitching." So I just put that in there because I thought it was appropriate. So, future developments.
When you ask me for one, so
Okay. These are the areas that we might think about developing in the future. That obviously it's nice to have some context of ultimately, but we're hoping to look into those areas. Postgraduate students, it would be good to have that, include them in a project. Home students possibly as well. I'll leave you with a comment from the Belgian team signing off to the Indonesian group. Here we go. Okay, so it's nice they learnt a bit of Indonesian. I'm sure they didn't know that beforehand. So thank you very much, and apologies for Marina for going over time.